Thinking fourth dimensionally. There are two actual outlooks on the world possessed by every man, and the ancient storytellers were fully conscious of these two outlooks. They called the one the carnal mind, and the other the mind of Christ. We recognize these two centers of thought in the statement, "The natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him, neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned." 1 Corinthians 2:14. To the natural mind, reality is confined to the instant called. Now this very moment seems to contain the whole of reality, everything else is unreal. To the natural mind, the past and the future are purely imaginary. In other words, my past, when I use the natural mind, is only a memory image of things that were. And to the limited focus of the carnal or natural mind, the future does not exist. The natural mind does not believe that it could revisit the past and see it as something that is present, something that is objective and concrete to itself. Neither does it believe that the future exists. To the Christ mind, the spiritual mind, which in our language we will call the fourth dimensional focus, the past, the present, and the future of the natural mind are a present whole. It takes in the entire array of sensory impressions that man has encountered, is encountering, and will encounter. The only reason you and I are functioning as we are today and are not aware of the greater outlook is simply because we are creatures of habit. And habit renders us totally blind to what otherwise we should see. But habit is not law. It acts as though it were the most compelling force in the world, yet it is not law. We can create a new approach to life. If you and I would spend a few minutes every day in withdrawing our attention from the region of sensation and concentrating it on an invisible state, and remain faithful to this contemplation, feeling and sensing the reality of an invisible state, we would in time become aware of this greater world, this dimensionally larger world. The state contemplated is now a concrete reality, displaced in time. Tonight, as we turn to our Bible, you be the judge as to where you stand in your present unfoldment. Our first story for tonight is from the 5th chapter of the Gospel of Mark. In this chapter there are 3 stories told as though they were separate experiences of the dominant characters. In the first story we are told that Jesus came upon an insane man, a naked man who lived in the cemetery and hid himself behind the tombs. This man appealed to Jesus not to cast out the devils that bedeviled him. But Jesus said unto him, "Come out of the man, thou unclean spirit." Mark 5:8. Thus Jesus cast out the devils that they may now destroy themselves. And we find this man for the first time, clothed and in his right mind and seated at the feet of the Master. We will get the psychological sense of this chapter by changing the name Jesus to that of enlightened reason or fourth dimensional thinking. As we progress in this chapter, we are told that Jesus now comes upon the high priest whose name is Jairus, and Jairus, the high priest of the synagogue, has a child who is dying. She is 12 years old, and he appeals to Jesus to come and heal the child. Jesus consents, and as he starts toward the home of the high priest, a woman in the marketplace touched his garment. And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that virtue had gone out of him, turned him about in the press, and said, "Who touched my clothes?" Mark 5:30. The woman who was healed of an issue of blood that she had had for 12 years confessed that she had touched him. And he said unto her, "Daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole, go in peace." Mark 5:34. As he continues toward the home, the high priest, he is told that the child is dead, and there is no need to go to resurrect her. She is no longer asleep, but is now dead. As soon as Jesus heard the word that was spoken, He saith unto the ruler of the synagogue, Be not afraid, only believe. Mark 5:36. And when he was come in, he saith unto them, Why make ye this ado and weep? The damsel is not dead, but sleepeth. Mark 5:39. With this the entire crowd mocked and laughed, but Jesus, closing the doors against the mocking crowd, took with him into the household of Jairus his disciples and the father and mother of the dead child. They entered into the room where the damsel was lying. And he took the damsel by the hand and said unto her, Damsel, I say unto thee, arise. Mark 5:41. From this deep sleep she awoke and arose and walked, and the high priest and all the others were astonished. And he changed them straitly, that no man should know it, and he commanded that something should be given her to eat. Mark 5:43. You are this very night, as you are seated here, pictured in this 5th chapter of Mark. A cemetery is for one purpose, it is simply a record of the dead. Are you living in the dead past? If you are living among the dead, your prejudices, your superstitions, and your false beliefs that you keep alive are the tombstones behind which you hide. If you refuse to let them go, you are just as mad as the madman of the Bible who pleaded with enlightened reason not to cast them out. There is no difference. But enlightened reason is incapable of protecting prejudice and superstition against the inroads of reason. There is not a man in this world who has a prejudice, regardless of the nature of the prejudice, who can hold it up to the light of reason. Tell me you are against a certain nation, a certain race, a certain ism, a certain anything. I do not care what it is. You cannot expose that belief of yours to the light of reason and have it live. In order that it may be kept alive in your world, you must hide it from reason. You cannot analyze it in the light of reason and have it live. When this 4th dimensional focus comes and shows you a new approach to life and casts out of your own mind all these things that bedeviled you, you are then cleansed and clothed in your right mind. And you sit at the foot of understanding, called the feet of the Master. Now clothed and in your right mind, you can resurrect the dead. What dead? The child in the story is not a child. The child is your ambition, your desire, the unfulfilled dreams of your heart. This is the child housed within the mind of man, for as I have stated before, the entire drama of the Bible is a psychological one. The Bible has no reference at all to any person who ever existed, or any event that ever occurred upon earth. All the stories of the Bible unfold in the minds of the individual man. In this story, Jesus is the awakened intellect of man. When your mind functions outside of the range of your present senses, when your mind is healed of all the former limitations, then you are no longer the insane man, but you are this presence personified as Jesus, the power that can resurrect the longings of the heart of man. You are now the woman with the issue of blood. What is this issue of blood? A running womb is not a productive womb. She held it for 12 years. She was incapable of conceiving. She could not give form to her longing because of the running of the issue of blood. You are told her faith closed it. As the womb closes, it can give form to the seed or idea. As your mind is cleansed of your former concept of self, you assume you are what you want to be, and remaining faithful to this assumption, you give form to your assumption or resurrect your child. You are the woman cleansed of the issue of blood, and you move towards the house of the dead child. The child or state you desired is now your fixed concept of yourself. But now, having assumed that I am what formerly I desired to be, I cannot continue desiring what I am conscious of being, so I do not discuss it. I talk to no one concerning what I am. It is so obvious to me that I am what I wanted to be, that I walk as though I were, walking as though I am what formerly I wanted to be. My world of limited focus does not see it and thinks I no longer desire it. The child is dead within their world, but I, who know the law, say, the child is not dead. The damsel is not dead, she but sleepeth. I now awaken her. I, by my assumption, awaken and make visible in my world what I assume, for assumptions, if sustained, invariably awaken what they affirm. I close the door. What door? The door of my senses. I simply shut out completely all that my senses reveal. I deny the evidence of my senses. I suspend the limited reason of the natural man, and walk in this bold assertion that I am what my senses deny. With the door of my senses closed, what do I take into that disciplined state? I take no one into that state, but the parents of the child and my disciples. I close the door against the mocking, laughing crowd. I no longer look for confirmation. I completely deny the evidence of my senses, which mock my assumption, and do not discuss with others whether my assumption is possible or not. Who are the parents? We have discovered that the father-mother of all creation is man's I amness. Man's consciousness is God. I am conscious of the state. I am the father-mother of all my ideas, and my mind remains faithful to this new concept of self. My mind is disciplined. I take into that state the disciples, and I shut out of that state everything that would deny it. Now the child, unaided by a man, is resurrected. The condition which I desired and assumed that I had becomes objectified within my world and bears witness to the power of my assumption. You be the judge, I cannot judge you. You are either living now in the dead past, or you are living as the woman whose issue of blood has been stanched. Could you actually answer me if I asked you the question? Do you believe now that you, without the assistance of another, need only assume that you are what you want to be, to make that assumption real within your world? Or do you believe that you must first fulfill a certain condition imposed upon you by the past, that you must be of a certain order, or a certain something? I am not being critical of certain churches or groups, but there are those who believe that anyone outside of their church or group is not yet saved. I was born a Protestant. You talk to a Protestant, there is only one Christian, a Protestant. You talk to a Catholic, why there is nothing in the world that is a Christian but a Catholic. You talk to a Jew, and the Christians are heathens, and the Jews are the chosen. You talk to a Mohammedan, Jews and Christians are the infidels. You talk to someone else and all these are the untouchables. It does not matter to whom you talk, they are always the chosen ones. If you believe that you must be one of these in order to be saved, you are still an insane man hiding behind these superstitions and these prejudices of the past, and you are begging not to be cleansed. Some of you say to me, do not ask me to give up my belief in Jesus the man, or in Moses the man, or in Peter the man. When you ask me to give up my belief in these characters, you are asking too much. Leave me these beliefs, because they comfort me. I can believe that they lived upon earth and still follow your psychological interpretation of their stories. I say, come out of the dead past, come out of that cemetery and walk, knowing that you and your Father are one, and your Father, whom men call God, is your own consciousness. That is the only creative law in the world. Of what are you conscious of being? Although you cannot see your objective with the limited focus of your three-dimensional mind, you are now that which you have assumed you are. Walk in that assumption and remain faithful to it. Time, in this dimension of your being, beats slowly, and you may not. Even after you objectify your assumption, remember there was a time when this present reality was but an attitude of mind. Because of the slowness of the beat of time here, you often fail to see the relationship between your inner nature and the outer world that bears witness to it. You be the judge of the position you now occupy in this 5th chapter of Mark. Are you resurrecting the dead child? Are you still in need of having that womb of your mind closed? Is it still running and therefore cannot be fertile? Are you now the insane man living in the dead past? Only you can be the judge and answer these questions. Now we turn to a story in the 5th chapter of the Gospel of John. This will show you how beautifully the ancient storytellers told of the two distinct outlooks on this world. One, the limited three-dimensional focus, and the other, the fourth-dimensional focus. This story tells of an impotent man who is quickly healed. Jesus comes to a place called Bethesda, which by definition means the house of 5 porches. On these 5 porches are unnumbered impotent folk, lame, blind, halt, withered, and others. Tradition had it that at certain seasons of the year, an angel would descend and disturb the pool which was near these 5 porches. As the angel disturbed the pool, the first one in was always healed, but only the first one, not the second. Jesus, seeing a man who was lame from his mother's womb, said to him, "Wilt thou be made whole?" John 5:6. The impotent man answered him, "Sir, I have no man when the water is troubled to put me into the pool, but while I am coming, another steppeth down before me." John 5:7. Jesus saith unto him, "Rise, take up thy bed, and walk." John 5:8. And immediately the man was made whole, and took up his bed, and walked, and on the same day was the Sabbath. John 5:9. You read this story and you think some strange man who possessed miraculous power suddenly said to the lame man, "Rise and walk." I cannot repeat too often that the story, even when it introduces numberless individualities, takes place within the mind of the individual man. The pool is your consciousness. The angel is an idea called the messenger of God. Consciousness being God. When you have an idea, you are entertaining an angel. The minute you are conscious of a desire, your pool has been disturbed. Desire disturbs the mind of man. To want something is to be disturbed. The very moment you have an ambition or a clearly defined objective, the pool has been disturbed by the angel, which was the desire. You are told that the first one into the disturbed pool is always healed. My closest companions in this world, my wife and my little girl, are to me when I address them. Second, I must speak to my wife as you are. I must speak to anyone, no matter how close they are, as you are. And after that, the third person, he is. There is only one person in this world with whom I can use the first person present, and that is self. I am can be said only of myself, it cannot be said of another. Therefore, when I am conscious of some desire that I want to be, but seemingly am not, the pool being disturbed, who can get into that pool before me? I alone possess the power of the first person. I am that which I want to be. Except I believe I am what I want to be, I remain as I formerly was, and die in that limitation. In this story, you need no man to put you into the pool, as your consciousness is disturbed by desire. All you need do is to assume you are already that which formerly you wanted to be, and you are in it. And no man can get in before you. What man can get in before you when you become conscious of being that which you want to be? No one can be before you when you alone possess the power to say I am. These are the two outlooks. You are now what your senses would deny. Are you bold enough to assume that you are already that which you want to be? If you dare assume you are already that which your reason and your senses now deny, then you are in the pool and, unaided by a man, you too will rise and take your couch and walk. You are told it happened on the Sabbath. The Sabbath is only the mystical sense of stillness, when you are unconcerned, when you are not anxious, when you are not looking for results, knowing that signs follow and do not precede. The Sabbath is the day of stillness wherein there is no working, when you are not working to make it so you are in the Sabbath. when you are not at all concerned about the opinion of others, when you walk as though you were, you cannot raise one finger to make it so, you are in the Sabbath. I cannot be concerned as to how it will be, and still say I am conscious of being it. If I am conscious of being free, secure, healthy and happy, I sustain these states of consciousness without effort or labor on my part. Therefore, I am in the Sabbath, and because it was the Sabbath, he rose and walked. Our next story is from the 4th chapter of the Gospel of John, and it is one you have heard time and time again. Jesus comes to the well, and there is a woman called the woman of Samaria, and he said to her, "Give me to drink." John 4:7. Then saith the woman of Samaria unto him, How is it that thou, being a Jew, asketh drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. John 4:9. Jesus answered and said unto her, If thou knewest the gift of God, and who it is that saith to thee, Give me to drink, thou wouldest have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water. John 4:10. The woman, seeing that he has nothing with which to draw the water, and knowing the well is deep, says, Art thou greater than our father Jacob, which gave us the well, and drank thereof himself, and his children, and his cattle? John 4:12. Jesus answered and said unto her, Whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again. But whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water, springing up into everlasting life. John 4:13-14. Then he tells her all concerning herself, and asks her to go and call her husband. She answered and said, I have no husband. John 4:17. Jesus said unto her, Thou hast well said, I have no husband, for thou hast had 5 husbands, and he whom thou now hast is not thy husband. John 4:17-18. The woman, knowing this to be true, goes into the marketplace and tells the other, I have met the Messiah. They ask her, How do you know you have met the Messiah? Because he told me all things that I have ever done. She replies. Here is a focus that takes in the entire past at least, and tells her now concerning the future. Continuing with the story, the disciples come to Jesus and say, Master, eat. John 4:31. But he said unto them, I have meat to eat that ye know not of. John 4:32. When they speak of a harvest in 4 months, Jesus replies, Say not ye, there are yet 4 months, and then cometh harvest? Behold, I say unto you, lift up your eyes and look on the fields, for they are white already to harvest. John 4:35. He sees things that people wait 4 months for, or wait 4 years for. He sees them as now in a dimensionally larger world, existing now, taking place now. Let us go back to the first part of the story. The woman of Samaria is the 3-dimensional you, and Jesus at the well is the 4th-dimensional you. The argument starts between what you want to be and what reason tells you that you are. The greater you tells you that if you would dare assume you are already what you want to be, you would become it. The lesser you, with its limited focus, tells you why you haven't a bucket, you haven't a rope, and the well is deep. How could you ever reach the depth of this state without the means to that end? You answer and say, if you only knew who asks of you to drink, you would ask of him. If you only knew what in yourself is urging upon you the embodiment of the state you now seek, you would suspend your little sight and let him do it for you. Then he tells you that you have 5 husbands, and you deny it. But he knows far better than you that your 5 senses impregnate you morning, noon, and night with their limitations. They tell you what children you will bear tonight, tomorrow, and the days to come. For your five senses act like five husbands who constantly impregnate your consciousness, which is the great womb of God. And morning, noon, and night they suggest to you, and dictate to you, that which you must accept as true. He tells you the one you would like to have for your husband is not your husband. In other words, the sixth has not yet impregnated you. What you would like to be is denied by these five, and they hold the power. They dictate what you will accept as true. What you would like to accept has not yet penetrated your mind and impregnated your mind with its reality. He whom you call husband is really not your husband. You are not bearing his likeness. To bear his likeness is proof that you are his wife, at least you have known him intimately. You are not bearing the likeness of the sixth, you are only bearing the likeness of the five. Then one turns to me and tells me all that I have ever known. I go back in my mind's eye, and reason tells me that all through my life, I have always accepted the limitations of my senses. I have always looked upon them as fact. And morning, noon, and night, I have borne witness to this acceptance. Reason tells me I have only known these five from the time I was born. Now I would like to step outside the limitation of my senses, but I have not yet found within myself the courage to assume I am what these five would deny that I am. So here I remain, conscious of my task, but without the courage to step beyond the limitations of my senses, and that which my reason denies. He tells these, I have meat ye know not of. I am the bread that droppeth down from heaven. I am the wine. I know what I want to be, and because I am that bread I feast upon it. I assume that I am, and instead of feasting upon the fact that I am in this room talking to you, and you are listening to me, and that I am in Los Angeles, I feast upon the fact that I am elsewhere, and I walk here as though I were elsewhere. And gradually I become what I feast upon. Let me give you two personal stories. When I was a boy, I lived in a very limited environment, in a little island called Barbados. Feed for animals was very, very scarce and very expensive because we had to import it. I am one of a family of 10 children, and my grandmother lived with us, making 13 at the table. Time and again I can remember my mother saying to the cook in the early part of the week, I want you to put away 3 ducks for Sunday's dinner. This meant that she would take from the flock in the yard 3 ducks and coop them up in a very small cage and feed them, stuff them morning, noon, and night with corn and all the things she wanted the ducks to feast upon. This was an entirely different diet from what we regularly fed the ducks, because we kept those birds alive by feeding them fish. We kept them alive and fat on fish, because fish were very cheap and plentiful, but you could not eat a bird that fed upon fish, not as you and I like a bird. The cook would take 3 ducks, put them in a cage, and for 7 days stuff them with corn, sour milk, and all the things we wanted to taste in the birds. Then when they were killed and served for dinner 7 days later, they were luscious, milk-fed, corn-fed birds. But occasionally the cook forgot to put away the birds, and my father, knowing we were having ducks, and believing that she had carried out the command, did not send anything else for dinner, and 3 fish came to the table. You could not touch those birds, for they were so much the embodiment of what they fed upon. Man is a psychological being, a thinker. It is not what he feeds upon physically, but what he feeds upon mentally that he becomes. We become the embodiment of that which we mentally feed upon. Now those ducks could not be fed corn in the morning and fish in the afternoon and something else at night. It had to be a complete change of diet. In our case, we cannot have a little bit of meditation in the morning, curse at noon, and do something else in the evening. We have to go on a mental diet. For a week we must completely change our mental food. Whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, Whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, and if there be any praise, think on these things. Phil 8. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. If I could now single out the kind of mental food I want to express within my world and feast upon it, I would become it. Let me tell you why I am doing what I am doing today. It was back in 1933 in the city of New York, and my old friend Abdullah, with whom I studied Hebrew for 5 years, was really the beginning of the eating of all my superstitions. When I went to him, I was filled with superstitions. I could not eat meat, I could not eat fish, I could not eat chicken, I could not eat any of these things that were living in the world. I did not drink, I did not smoke, and I was making a tremendous effort to live a celibate life. In November 1933, I bade goodbye to my parents in the city of New York as they sailed for Barbados. I had been in this country 12 years with no desire to see Barbados. I was not successful, and I was ashamed to go home to successful members of my family. After 12 years in America, I was a failure in my own eyes. I was in the theater and made money 1 year and spent it the next month. I was not what I would call by their standards, nor by mine, a successful person. Mind you, when I said goodbye to my parents in November, I had no desire to go to Barbados. The ship pulled out, and as I came up the street, something possessed me with a desire to go to Barbados. It was the year 1933. I was unemployed and had no place to go except a little room on 75th Street. I went straight to my old friend Abdullah and said to him, "Ab, the strangest feeling is possessing me. For the first time in 12 years, I want to go to Barbados. If you want to go, Neville, you have gone," he replied. That was very strange language to me. I am in New York City on 72nd Street, and he tells me I have gone to Barbados. I said to him, "What do you mean I have gone, Abdullah?" He said, "Do you really want to go?" I answered, "Yes." He then said to me, "As you walk through this door now, you are not walking on 72nd Street. You are walking on palm-lined streets, coconut-lined streets. This is Barbados. Do not ask me how you are going to go. You are in Barbados. You do not say how when you are there. You are there. Now you walk as though you were there." I went out of his place in a daze. I am in Barbados. I have no money. I have no job. I am not even well clothed, and yet I am in Barbados. He was not the kind of a person with whom you would argue, not Abdullah. 2 weeks later, I was no nearer my goal than on the day I first told him I wanted to go to Barbados. I said to him, "Ab, I trust you implicitly, but here is one time I cannot see how it is going to work. I have not 1 penny towards my journey," I began to explain. You know what he did. He was as black as the ace of spades, my old friend Abdullah, with his turbaned head. As I sat in his living room, he rose from his chair and went towards his study and slammed the door, which was not an invitation to follow him. As he went through the door, he said to me, "I have said all that I have to say." On the 3rd of December, I stood before Abdullah and told him again I was no nearer my trip. He repeated his statement. "You are in Barbados, the very last ship sailing for Barbados that would take me there for the reason I wanted to go, which was to be there for Christmas, sailed at noon on December 6th, the old Narissa. On the morning of December 4th, having no job, having no place to go, I slept late. When I got up, there was an airmail letter from Barbados under my door. As I opened the letter, a little piece of paper flickered to the floor. I picked it up, and it was a draft for $50. The letter was from my brother Victor, and it read, "I am not asking you to come, Neville. This is a command. We have never had a Christmas when all the members of our family were present at the same time. This Christmas it could be done if you would come. My oldest brother Cecil left home before the youngest was born, and then we started to move away from home at different times, so never in the history of our family were we ever all together at the same time. The letter continued. You are not working. I know there is no reason why you cannot come, so you must be here before Christmas. The enclosed $50 is to buy a few shirts or a pair of shoes you may need for the trip. You will not need tips. Use the bar if you are drinking. I will meet the ship and pay all your tips and your incurred expenses. I have cabled Furness, Withy and Company in New York City and told them to issue you a ticket when you appear at their office. The $50 is simply to buy some little essentials. You may sign as you want aboard the ship. I will meet it and take care of all obligations. I went down to Furness, Withy and Company with my letter and let them read it. They said, "We received the cable, Mr. Goddard, but unfortunately we have not any space left on the December 6th sailing. The only thing available is third class between New York and St. Thomas. When we get to St. Thomas, we have a few passengers who are getting off. You may then ride LST class from St. Thomas to Barbados. But between New York and St. Thomas, you must go third class, although you may have the privileges of the LST class dining room and walk the decks of the one stone class." I said, "I will take it." I went back to my friend Abdullah on the afternoon of December 4th and said, "It worked like a dream." I told him what I had done, thinking he would be happy. Do you know what he said to me? He said, "Who told you that you are going third class? Did I see you in Barbados? The man you are going third class? You are in Barbados, and you went there first class." I did not have one moment to see him again before I sailed on the noon of December 6th. When I reached the dock with my passport and my papers to get aboard that ship, the agent said to me, "We have good news for you, Mr. Goddard. There has been a cancellation, and you are going one stone class." Abdullah taught me the importance of remaining faithful to an idea and not compromising. I wavered, but he remained faithful to the assumption that I was in Barbados and had traveled first class. Now back to the significance of our two Bible stories. The well is deep, and you have no bucket, you have no rope. It is 4 months to the harvest, and Jesus says, "I have meat to eat ye know not of. I am the bread of heaven." Feast on the idea, become identified with the idea as though you were already that embodied state. Walk in the assumption that you are what you want to be. If you feast on that and remain faithful to that mental diet, you will crystallize it. You will become it in this world. When I came back to New York in 1934, after 3 heavenly months in Barbados, I drank, I smoked, and did everything I had not done in years. I remembered what Abdullah had said to me. "After you have proven this law, you will become normal, Neville. You will come out of that graveyard. You will come out of that dead past where you think you are being holy. For all you are really doing, you know you are being so good, Neville. You are good for nothing." I came back walking this earth a completely transformed person. From that day, which was in February 1934, I began to live more and more. I cannot honestly tell you I have always succeeded. My many mistakes in this world, my many failures would convict me if I told you that I have so completely mastered the movements of my attention, that I can at all times remain faithful to the idea I want to embody. But I can say with the ancient teacher, although I seem to have failed in the past, I move on and strive day after day to become that which I want to embody in this world. Suspend judgment. Refuse to accept what reason and the senses now dictate. And if you remain faithful to the new diet, you will become the embodiment of the ideal to which you remain faithful. If there is one place in the world that is unlike my little island of Barbados, it is New York City. In Barbados, the tallest building is 3 stories, and the streets are lined with palm trees and coconut trees and all sorts of tropical things. In New York City, you must go to a park to find a tree. Yet I had to walk the streets of New York as though I walked the streets of Barbados. To one's imagination, all things are possible. I walked, feeling that I was actually walking the streets of Barbados, and in that assumption I could almost smell the odor of the coconut-lined lanes. I began to create within my mind's eye the atmosphere I would physically encounter were I in Barbados. As I remained faithful to this assumption, somebody cancelled passage, and I received it. My brother in Barbados, who never thought of my coming home, has the commanding urge to write me a strange letter. He had never dictated to me, but this time he dictated, and thought that he originated the idea of my visit. I went home and had 3 heavenly months, returned LST class, and brought back quite a sum of cash in my pocket, a gift. My trip, had I paid for it, would have been $3,000, yet I did it without a nickel in my pocket. I have ways ye know not of. My ways are past finding out. The dimensionally greater self took my assumption as the command, and influenced the behavior of my brother to write that letter, influenced the behavior of someone to cancel that first-class passage, and did all the things necessary that would tend toward the production of the idea with which I was identified. I was identified with the feeling of being there. I slept as though I were there, and the entire behavior of man was molded in harmony with my assumption. I did not need to go down to Furness, Withy and Company and beg them for a passage, asking them to cancel someone who was booked first class. I did not need to write my brother and beg him to send me some money or buy me a passage. He thought he originated the act. Actually, to this day, he believes that he initiated the desire to bring me home. My old friend Abdullah simply said to me, "You are in Barbados, Neville. You want to be there, wherever you want to be, there you are. Live as though you are, and that you shall be." These are the 2 outlooks. On the world possessed by every man, I do not care who you are, every child born of woman, regardless of race, nation, or creed, possesses 2 distinct outlooks on the world. You are either the natural man who receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, because to you in the natural focus they are foolishness unto you, or you are the spiritual man who perceiveth things outside of the limitations of your senses, because all things are now realities in a dimensionally larger world. There is no need to wait 4 months to harvest. You are either the woman of Samaria or Jesus at the well. You are the man waiting on the 5 porches for the disturbance and someone to push him in, or you are the one who can command yourself to rise and walk in spite of others who wait. Are you the man behind the tombstones in the cemetery waiting and begging not to be clean because you do not want to be cleansed of your prejudices? One of the most difficult things for man to give up is his superstitions, his prejudice. He holds on to these as though they were the treasure of treasures. When you do become cleansed and you are free, then the womb, your own mind, is automatically healed. It becomes the prepared ground where seeds, your desires, can take root and grow into manifestation. The child you now bear in your heart is your present objective. Your present longing is a child that is as though it were sick. If you assume you are now what you would like to be, the child for a moment becomes dead because there is no disturbance anymore. You cannot be disturbed when you feel you are what you want to be, because if you feel you are what you wanted to be, you are satisfied in that assumption. To others who judge superficially, you seem no longer to desire, so to them the desire or damsel is dead. They think you have lost your ambition because you no longer discuss your secret ambition. You have completely adjusted yourself to the idea. You have assumed that you are what you want to be. You know, she is not dead, she but sleepeth. I go to awaken her. I walk in the assumption that I am, and as I walk, I quietly awaken her. Then when she awakens, I will do the normal, natural thing. I will give her to eat. I will not brag about it and tell others. I simply go and tell no man. I feed this state I now like with my attention. I keep it alive within my world by becoming attentive to it. Things that I am not attentive to fade and wither within my world, regardless of what they are. They are not just born and then remain unfed. I gave them birth by reason of the fact that I became conscious of being them. When I embody them within my world, that is not the end. That is the beginning. Now I am a mother who must keep alive this state by being attentive to it. The day that I am not attentive, I have withdrawn my milk from it, and it fades from my world, as I become attentive to something else in my world. You can either be attentive to the limitations and feed these and make them mountains, or you can be attentive to your desires. But to become attentive, you must assume you are already that which you wanted to be. Although today we speak of a third-dimensional and a fourth-dimensional focus, do not think for one moment these ancient teachers were not fully conscious of these two distinct centers of thought within the minds of all men. They personified these two, and they tried to show man that the only thing which robs him of the man he could be is habit. Although it is not law, every psychologist will tell you that habit is the most inhibiting force in the world. It completely restricts man and binds him and makes him totally blind to what otherwise he should be. Begin now to mentally see and feel yourself as that which you want to be, and feast upon that sensation morning, noon, and night. I have scoured the Bible for a time interval that is longer than 3 days, and I have not found it. Jesus answered and said unto them, Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. John 2:19. Prepare you victuals, for within 3 days ye shall pass over this Jordan, to go in to possess the land, which the Lord your God giveth you to possess it. Joshua 1:11. If I could completely saturate my mind with one sensation, and walk as though it were already a fact, I am promised, and I cannot find any denial of it in this great book, that I do not need more than a 3-day diet if I remain faithful to it. But I must be honest about it. If I change my diet in the course of the day, I extend the time interval. You ask me, but how do I know about the interval? You, yourself, determine the interval. We have today in our modern world a little word which confuses most of us. I know it confused me until I dug deeper. The word is action. Action is supposed to be the most fundamental thing in the world. It is not an atom, it is more fundamental. It is not a part of an atom like an electron, it is more fundamental than that. They call it the fourth dimensional unit. The most fundamental thing in the world is action. You ask, what is action? Our physicists tell us that it is energy multiplied by time. We become more confused and say, energy multiplied by time, what does that mean? They answer, there is no response to a stimulus, no matter how intense the stimulus, unless it endures for a certain length of time. There must be a minimum endurance to the stimulus, or there is no response. On the other hand, there is no response to time unless there is a minimum degree of intensity. Today, the most fundamental thing in the world is called action, or simply energy multiplied by time. The Bible gives it as 3 days. The duration is 3 days for response in this world. If I would now assume I am what I want to be, and if I am faithful to it, and walk as though I were, the very longest stretch given for its realization is 3 days. If there is something tonight that you really want in this world, then experience in imagination what you would experience in the flesh were you to realize your goal, and deafen your ears, and blind your eyes to all that denies the reality of your assumption. If you do this, you would be able to tell me before I leave this city of Los Angeles that you have realized what was only a wish when you came here. It will be my joy to rejoice with you in the knowledge that the child which was seemingly dead is now alive. This damsel really was not dead, she was only asleep. You fed her in this silence because you have meat no one else knows of. You gave her food, and she became a resurrected living reality within your world. Then you can share your joy with me, and I can rejoice in your joy. The purpose of these lessons is to remind you of the law of your own being, the law of consciousness. You are that law. You are only unconscious of its operation. You fed and kept alive the things you did not wish to express within this world. Take my challenge and put this philosophy to the test. If it does not work, you should not use it as a comforter. If it is not true, you must completely discard it. I know it is true. You will not know it until you try either to prove or disprove it. Too many of us have joined isms, and we are afraid to put them to the test because we feel we might fail. And then, where are we? Not really wanting to know the truth concerning it, we hesitate to be bold enough to put it to the test. You say, I know it would work in some other way. I do not want to really test it. While I have not yet disproved it, I can still be comforted by it. Now do not fool yourself. Do not think for 1 second that you are wise. Prove or disprove this law. I know that if you attempt to disprove it, you will prove it. And I will be the richer for your proving it. Not in dollars, not in things, but because you become the living fruit of what I believe I am teaching in this world. It is far better to have you a successful, satisfied person after 5 days of instruction than to have you go out dissatisfied. I hope you will be bold enough to challenge this instruction and either prove or disprove it. Now, before we go into the silence period, I shall briefly explain the technique again. We have 2 techniques in applying this law. Everyone here must now know exactly what he wants. You must know that if you do not get it tonight, you will still be as desirous tomorrow concerning this objective. When you know exactly what you want, construct in your mind as a single, simple event which implies fulfillment of your desire, an event wherein self predominates. Instead of sitting back and looking at yourself as though you were on the screen, you be the actor in the drama. Restrict the event to one single action. If you are going to shake a hand because that implies fulfillment of your desire, then do that and that only. Do not shake hands and then wander off in your imagination to a dinner party or to some other place. Restrict your action to simply shaking hands and do it over and over again until that handshake takes on the solidity and the distinctness of reality. If you feel you cannot remain faithful to an action, I want you now to define your objective and then condense the idea, which is your desire, into a single phrase, a phrase which implies fulfillment of your desire. Some phrase such as, "Isn't it wonderful?" Or if I felt thankful because I thought someone was instrumental in bringing my desire to pass, I could say thank you and repeat it with feeling over and over again like a lullaby until my mind was dominated by the single sensation of thankfulness. We will now sit quietly in these chairs with the idea which implies fulfillment of our desire condensed to a single phrase or to a single act. We will relax and immobilize our physical bodies. Then let us experience in imagination the sensation which our condensed phrase or action affirms. If you imagine yourself shaking another person's hand, do not use your physical hand, let it remain immobilized. But imagine that housed within your hand is a more subtle, more real hand, which can be extracted in your imagination. Put your imaginary hand into the imaginary hand of your friend who stands before you and feel the handshake. Keep your physical body immobilized, even though you become mentally active in what you are now about to do. No one to change but self. May I take just a minute to clarify what was said last night? A lady felt from what I said last night that I am anti-one nation. I do hope that I am not anti any nation, race or belief. If perchance I used a nation, it was only to illustrate a point. What I tried to tell you was this: we become what we contemplate, for it is the nature of love, as it is the nature of hate, to change us into the likeness of that which we contemplate. Last night I simply read a news item to show you that when we think we can destroy our image by breaking the mirror, we are only fooling ourselves. When, through war or revolution, we destroy titles which to us represent arrogance and greed, we become in time the embodiment of that which we thought we had destroyed. So today, the people who thought they destroyed the tyrants are themselves that which they thought they had destroyed. That I may not be misunderstood, let me again lay the foundation of this principle. Consciousness is the one and only reality. We are incapable of seeing other than the contents of our own consciousness. Therefore, hate betrays us in the hour of victory and condemns us to be that which we condemn. All conquest results in an exchange of characteristics, so that conquerors become like the conquered foe. We hate others for the evil which is in ourselves. Races, nations, and religious groups have lived for centuries in intimate hostility, and it is the nature of hatred, as it is the nature of love, to change us into the likeness of that which we contemplate. Nations act toward other nations as their own citizens act toward each other. When slavery exists in a state and that nation attacks another, it is with intent to enslave. When there is a fierce economic competition between citizen and citizen, then in war with another nation, the object of the war is to destroy the trade of the enemy. Wars of domination are brought about by the will of those who within a state are dominant over the fortunes of the rest. We radiate the world that surrounds us by the intensity of our imagination and feeling. But in this third-dimensional world of ours, time beats slowly, and so we do not always observe the relationship of the visible world to our inner nature. Now that is really what I meant. I thought I had said it. That I may not be misunderstood, that is my principle. You and I can contemplate an ideal and become it by falling in love with it. On the other hand, we can contemplate something we heartily dislike, and by condemning it, we will become it. But because of the slowness of time in this three-dimensional world, when we do become what we contemplated, we have forgotten that formerly we set out to worship or destroy it. Tonight's lesson is the capstone of the Bible, so do give me your attention. The most important question asked in the Bible will be found in the 16th chapter of the Gospel of St. Matthew. As you know, all of the Bible stories are your stories. Its characters live only in the mind of man. They have no reference at all to any person who lived in time and space, or to any event that ever occurred upon earth. The drama related in Matthew takes place in this manner. Jesus turns to his disciples and asks them, "Whom do men say that I, the Son of Man, am?" Matt 16:13. And they said, "Some say that thou art John the Baptist, some Elias, and others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets." He saith unto them, "But whom say ye that I am?" And Simon Peter answered and said, "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered and said unto him, "Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood hath not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. And I say also unto thee that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church." Matt 16:14-18. Jesus, turning to his disciples, is man turning to his disciplined mind in self-contemplation. You ask yourself the question, whom do men say that I am? In our language, I wonder what men think of me. You answer, some say John come again, some say Elias, others say Jeremiah, and still others a prophet of old come again. It is very flattering to be told that you are, or that you resemble, the great men of the past. But enlightened reason is not enslaved by public opinion. It is only concerned with the truth, so it asks itself another question, but whom say ye that I am? In other words, who am I? If I am bold enough to assume that I am Christ Jesus, the answer will come back, thou art Christ Jesus. When I can assume it and feel it and boldly live it, I will say to myself, flesh and blood could not have told me this, but my Father which is in heaven revealed it unto me. Then I make this concept of self the rock on which I establish my church, my world. If ye believe not that I am he, ye shall die in your sins. John 8:24. Because consciousness is the only reality, I must assume that I am already that which I desire to be. If I do not believe that I am already what I want to be, then I remain as I am and die in this limitation. Man is always looking for some prop on which to lean. He is always looking for some excuse to justify failure. This revelation gives man no excuse for failure. His concept of himself is the cause of all the circumstances of his life. All changes must first come from within himself. And if he does not change on the outside, it is because he has not changed within. But man does not like to feel that he is solely responsible for the conditions of his life. From that time many of his disciples went back, and walked no more with him. Then said Jesus unto the 12, Will ye also go away? Then Simon Peter answered him, Lord, to whom shall we go? Thou hast the words of eternal life. John 6:66-68. I may not like what I have just heard, that I must turn to my own consciousness as to the only reality, the only foundation on which all phenomena can be explained. It was easier living when I could blame another. It was much easier living when I could blame society for my ills, or point a finger across the sea and blame another nation. It was easier living when I could blame the weather for the way I feel. But to tell me that I am the cause of all that happens to me, that I am forever molding my world in harmony with my inner nature, that is more than man is willing to accept. If this is true, to whom would I go? If these are the words of eternal life, I must return to them, even though they seem so difficult to digest. When man fully understands this, he knows that public opinion does not matter, for men only tell him who he is. The behavior of men constantly tell me who I have conceived myself to be. If I accept this challenge and begin to live by it, I finally reach the point that is called the Great Prayer of the Bible. It is related in the 17th chapter of the Gospel of St. John. I have finished the work which thou gavest me to do. John 17:4. And now, O Father, glorify thou me with thine own self with the glory which I had with thee before the world was. John 17:5. While I was with them in the world, I kept them in thy name. Those that thou gavest me I have kept, and none of them is lost, but the son of perdition. John 17:12. It is impossible for anything to be lost. In this divine economy, nothing can be lost. It cannot even pass away. The little flower which has bloomed once blooms forever. It is invisible to you here with your limited focus, but it blooms forever in the larger dimension of your being, and tomorrow you will encounter it. All that thou gavest me I have kept in thy name, and none have I lost save the son of perdition. The son of perdition means simply the belief in loss. Son is a concept, an idea. Perdido is loss. I have only truly lost the concept of loss, for nothing can be lost. I can descend from the sphere where the thing itself now lives, and as I descend in consciousness to a lower level within myself, it passes from my world. I say, I have lost my health, I have lost my wealth, I have lost my standing in the community, I have lost faith, I have lost 1,000 things, but the things in themselves, having once been real in my world, can never cease to be. They never become unreal with the passage of time. I, by my descent in consciousness to a lower level, cause these things to disappear from my sight, and I say, they have gone, they are finished as far as my world goes. All I need do is to ascend to the level where they are eternal, and they once more objectify themselves and appear as realities within my world. The crux of the whole 17th chapter of the Gospel of St. John is found in the 19th verse, and for their sake I sanctify myself, that they also might be sanctified through the truth. Heretofore I thought I could change others through effort. Now I know I cannot change another unless I first change myself. To change another within my world, I must first change my concept of that other, and to do it best, I changed my concept of self. For it was the concept I held of self that made me see others as I did. Had I a noble, dignified concept of myself, I never could have seen the unlovely in others. Instead of trying to change others through argument and force, let me but ascend in consciousness to a higher level, and I will automatically change others by changing self. There is no one to change but self. That self is simply your awareness, your consciousness, and the world in which it lives is determined by the concept you hold of self. It is to consciousness that we must turn as to the only reality, for there is no clear conception of the origin of phenomena, except that consciousness is all, and all is consciousness. You need no helper to bring you what you seek. Do not for 1 second believe that I am advocating escape from reality when I ask you to simply assume you are now the man or the lady that you want to be. If you and I could feel what it would be like were we now that which we want to be, and live in this mental atmosphere as though it were real, then, in a way we do not know, our assumption would harden into fact. This is all we need do in order to ascend to the level where our assumption is already an objective, concrete reality. I need change no man. I sanctify myself, and in so doing I sanctify others. To the pure all things are pure. There is nothing unclean of itself, but to him that esteemeth anything to be unclean, to him it is unclean. Romans 14:14. There is nothing in itself unclean, but you, by your concept of self, see things either clean or unclean. I and my Father are one. John 10:30. If I do not the works of my Father, believe me not. But if I do, though ye believe not me, believe the works, that ye may know and believe that the Father is in me, and I in him. John 10:37-38. He made himself one with God, and thought it not strange or robbery to do the works of God. You always bear fruit in harmony with what you are. It is the most natural thing in the world for a pear tree to bear pears, an apple tree to bear apples, and for man to mold the circumstances of his life in harmony with his inner nature. I am the vine, ye are the branches. John 15:5. A branch has no life, save it be rooted in the vine. All I need do to change the fruit is to change the vine. You have no life in my world save that I am conscious of you. You are rooted in me, and like fruit, you bear witness of the vine that I am. There is no reality in the world other than your consciousness. Although you may now seem to be what you do not want to be, all you need do to change it, and to prove the change by circumstances in your world, is to quietly assume that you are that which you now want to be, and in a way you do not know you will become it. There is no other way to change this world. I am the way. My I amness, my consciousness is the way by which I change my world. As I change my concept of self, I change my world. When men and women help or hinder us, they only play the part that we, by our concept of self, wrote for them, and they play it automatically. They must play the parts they are playing because we are what we are. You will change the world only when you become the embodiment of that which you want the world to be. You have but one gift in this world that is truly yours to give, and that is yourself. Unless you yourself are that which you want the world to be, you will never see it in this world. Except ye believe not that I am he, ye shall die in your sins. John 8:24. Do you know that no two in this room live in the same world? We are going home to different worlds tonight. We close our doors on entirely different worlds. We rise tomorrow and go to work, where we meet each other and meet others. But we live in different mental worlds, different physical worlds. I can only give what I am. I have no other gift to give. If I want the world to be perfect, and who does not, I have failed only because I did not know that I could never see it perfect until I myself become perfect. If I am not perfect, I cannot see perfection, but the day that I become it, I beautify my world, because I see it through my own eyes. Unto the pure, all things are pure. Titus 1:15. No two here can tell me that you have heard the same message any one night. The one thing that you must do is hear what I say through that which you are. It must be filtered through your prejudices, your superstitions, and your concept of self. Whatever you are, it must come through that, and be colored by what you are. If you are disturbed, and you would like me to be something other than what I appear to be, then you must be that which you want me to be. We must become the thing that we want others to be, or we will never see them be it. Your consciousness, my consciousness, is the only true foundation in the world. This is that which is called Peter in the Bible, not a man. This faithfulness that cannot turn to anyone, that cannot be flattered when you are told by men you are John come again. That is very flattering to be told you are John the Baptist come again, or the great prophet Elias or Jeremiah. Then I deafen my ears to this very flattering little bit of news men would give me, and I ask myself, but honestly, who am I? If I can deny the limitations of my birth, my environment, and the belief that I am but an extension of my family tree, and feel within myself that I am Christ, and sustain this assumption until it takes a central place and forms the habitual center of my energy, I will do the works attributed to Jesus. Without thought or effort, I will mold a world in harmony with that perfection which I have assumed and feel springing within me. When I open the eyes of the blind, unstop the ears of the deaf, give joy for mourning and beauty for ashes, then and only then have I truly established this vine deep within. That is what I would automatically do were I truly conscious of being Christ. It is said of this presence, he proved that he was Christ by his works. Our ordinary alterations of consciousness, as we pass from one state to another, are not transformations, because each of them is so rapidly succeeded by another in the reverse direction. But whenever our assumption grows so stable as to definitely expel its rivals, then that central habitual concept defines our character and is a true transformation. Jesus, or enlightened reason, saw nothing unclean in the woman taken in adultery. He said to her, "Hath no man condemned thee?" John 8:10. She said, "No man, Lord." And Jesus said unto her, "Neither do I condemn thee, go and sin no more." John 8:11. No matter what is brought before the presence of beauty, it sees only beauty. Jesus was so completely identified with the lovely that he was incapable of seeing the unlovely. When you and I really become conscious of being Christ, we too will straighten the arms of the withered and resurrect the dead hopes of men. We will do all the things that we could not do when we felt ourselves limited by our family tree. It is a bold step and should not be taken lightly, because to do it is to die. John, the man of 3 dimensions, is beheaded, or loses his 3-dimensional focus that Jesus, the 4th-dimensional self, may live. Any enlargement of our concept of self involves a somewhat painful parting with strongly rooted hereditary conceptions. The ligaments are strong that hold us in the womb of conventional limitations. All that you formerly believed, you no longer believe. You know now that there is no power outside of your own consciousness, therefore you cannot turn to anyone outside of self. You have no ears for the suggestion that something else has power in it. You know the only reality is God, and God is your own consciousness. There is no other God. Therefore on this rock you build the everlasting church, and boldly assume you are this divine being, self-begotten because you dared to appropriate that which was not given to you in your cradle, a concept of self not formed in your mother's womb, a concept of self conceived outside of the offices of man. The story is beautifully told us in the Bible, using the 2 sons of Abraham, one the blessed, Isaac, born outside of the offices of man, and the other, Ishmael, born in bondage. Sarah was much too old to beget a child, so her husband Abraham went in unto the bondservant Hagar the pilgrim, and she conceived of the old man and bore him a son called Ishmael. Ishmael's hand was against every man, and every man's hand against him. Every child born of woman is born into bondage, born into all that his environment represents, regardless of whether it be the throne of England, the White House, or any great place in the world. Every child born of woman is personified as this Ishmael, the child of Hagar, but asleep in every child is the blessed Isaac, who is born outside of the offices of man and is born through faith alone. This second child has no earthly father, he is self-begotten. What is the second birth? I find myself man, I cannot go back into my mother's womb, and yet I must be born a second time. Except a man be born again, he cannot enter the kingdom of God. John 3:3. I quietly appropriate that which no man can give me, no woman can give me. I dare to assume that I am God. This must be of faith, this must be of promise. Then I become the blessed, I become Isaac. As I begin to do the things that only this presence could do, I know that I am born out of the limitations of Ishmael, and I have become heir to the kingdom. Ishmael could not inherit anything, although his father was Abraham, or God. Ishmael did not have both parents of the godly. His mother was Hagar the bondwoman, and so he could not partake of his father's estate. You are Abraham and Sarah, and contained within your own consciousness there is one waiting for recognition. In the Old Testament it is called Isaac, and in the New Testament it is called Jesus, and it is born without the aid of man. No man can tell you that you are Christ Jesus. No man can tell you and convince you that you are God. You must toy with the idea and wonder what it would be like to be God. No clear conception of the origin of phenomena is possible except that consciousness is all and all is consciousness. Nothing can be evolved from man that was not potentially involved in his nature. The ideal we serve and hope to attain could never be evolved from us, were it not potentially involved in our nature. Let me now retell and emphasize an experience of mine printed by me 2 years ago under the title The Search. I think it will help you to understand this law of consciousness, and show you that you have no one to change but self, for you are incapable of seeing other than the contents of your own consciousness. Once in an idle interval at sea, I meditated on the perfect state, and wondered what I would be were I of too pure eyes to behold iniquity. If to me all things were pure, and were I without condemnation. As I became lost in this fiery brooding, I found myself lifted above the dark environment of the senses. So intense was feeling, I felt myself a being of fire dwelling in a body of air. Voices, as from a heavenly chorus, with the exultation of those who had been conquerors in a conflict with death, were singing, "He is risen! He is risen!" And intuitively I knew they meant me. Then I seemed to be walking in the night. I soon came upon a scene that might have been the ancient pool of Bethesda, for in this place lay a great multitude of impotent folk, blind, halt, withered, waiting not for the moving of the water as of tradition, but waiting for me. As I came near, without thought or effort on my part, they were one after the other, molded as by the magician of the beautiful. Eyes, hands, feet, all missing members, were drawn from some invisible reservoir and molded in harmony with that perfection which I felt springing within me. When all were made perfect, the chorus exulted, "It is finished." I know this vision was the result of my intense meditation upon the idea of perfection, for my meditations invariably bring about union with the state contemplated. I had been so completely absorbed within the idea that for a while I had become what I contemplated, and the high purpose with which I had for that moment identified myself drew the companionship of high things and fashioned the vision in harmony with my inner nature. The ideal with which we are united works by association of ideas to awaken 1,000 moods to create a drama in keeping with the central idea. My mystical experiences have convinced me that there is no way to bring about the perfection we seek other than by the transformation of ourselves. As soon as we succeed in transforming ourselves, the world will melt magically before our eyes and reshape itself in harmony with that which our transformation affirms. We fashion the world that surrounds us by the intensity of our imagination and feeling, and we illuminate or darken our lives by the concepts we hold of ourselves. Nothing is more important to us than our conception of ourselves, and especially is true of our concept of the deep, dimensionally greater one within us. Those that help or hinder us, whether they know it or not, are the servants of that law which shapes outward circumstances in harmony with our inner nature. It is our conception of ourselves which frees or constrains us, though it may use material agencies to achieve its purpose. Because life molds the outer world to reflect the inner arrangement of our minds, there is no way of bringing about the outer perfection we seek other than by the transformation of ourselves. No help cometh from without. The hills to which we lift our eyes are those of an inner range. It is thus to our own consciousness that we must turn as to the only reality, the only foundation on which all phenomena can be explained. We can rely absolutely on the justice of this law to give us only that which is of the nature of ourselves. To attempt to change the world before we change our concept of ourselves is to struggle against the nature of things. There can be no outer change until there is first an inner change. As within, so without. I am not advocating philosophical indifference when I suggest that we should imagine ourselves as already that which we want to be, living in a mental atmosphere of greatness, rather than using physical means and arguments to bring about the desired changes. Everything we do, unaccompanied by a change of consciousness, is but futile readjustment of surfaces. However we toil or struggle, we can receive no more than our concepts of self affirm. To protest against anything which happens to us is to protest against the law of our being and our rulership over our own destiny. The circumstances of my life are too closely related to my conception of myself not to have been formed by my own spirit from some dimensionally larger storehouse of my being. If there is pain to me in these happenings, I should look within myself for the cause. For I am moved here and there, and made to live in a world in harmony with my concept of myself. If we would become as emotionally aroused over our ideas as we become over our dislikes, we would ascend to the plane of our ideal as easily as we now descend to the level of our hates. Love and hate have a magical transforming power, and we grow through their exercise into the likeness of what we contemplate. By intensity of hatred, we create in ourselves the character we imagine in our enemies. Qualities die for want of attention, so the unlovely states might best be rubbed out by imagining beauty for ashes and joy for mourning, rather than by direct attacks on the state from which we would be free. Whatsoever things are lovely and of good report, think on these things, for we become that with which we are en rapport. There is nothing to change but our concept of self. As soon as we succeed in transforming self, our world will dissolve and reshape itself in harmony with that which our change affirms. I, by descent in consciousness, have brought about the imperfection that I see. In the divine economy, nothing is lost. We cannot lose anything save by descent in consciousness from the sphere where the thing has its natural life. And now, O Faber, glorify thou me with thine own self with the glory which I had with thee before the world was. John 17:5. As I ascend in consciousness, the power and the glory that was mine return to me, and I too will say, I have finished the work thou gavest me to do. The work is to return from my descent in consciousness, from the level wherein I believed that I was a son of man, to the sphere where I know that I am one with my Father and my Father is God. I know beyond all doubt that there is nothing for man to do but to change his own concept of himself, to assume greatness and sustain this assumption. If we walk as though we were already the ideal we serve, we will rise to the level of our assumption and find a world in harmony with our assumption. We will not have to lift a finger to make it so, for it is already so. It was always so. You and I have descended in consciousness to the level where we now find ourselves, and we see imperfection, because we have descended. When we begin to ascend while here in this three-dimensional world, we find that we move in an entirely different environment. We have entirely different circles of friends, and an entirely different world while still living here. We know the great mystery of the statement, I am in the world but not of it. Instead of changing things, I would suggest to all to identify themselves with the ideal they contemplate. What would the feeling be like were you of two pure eyes to behold iniquity if to you all things were pure, and you were without condemnation? Contemplate the ideal state, and identify yourself with it, and you will ascend to the sphere where you as Christ have your natural life. You are still in that state where you were before the world was. The only thing that has fallen is your concept of self. You see the broken parts, which really are not broken. You are seeing them through distorted eyes, as though you were in one of those peculiar amusement galleries where a man walks before a mirror and he is elongated, yet he is the same man. Or he looks into another mirror, and he is all big and fat. These things are seen today because man is what he is, toy with the idea of perfection. Ask no man to help you, but let the prayer of the 17th chapter of the Gospel of St. John be your prayer. Appropriate the state that was yours before the world was. Know the truth of the statement. None have I lost save the son of perdition. Nothing is lost in all my holy mountain. The only thing that you lose is the belief in loss or the son of perdition. And for their sake I sanctify myself, that they also might be sanctified through the truth. John 17:19. There is no one to change but self. All you need do to make men and women holy in this world is to make yourself holy. You are incapable of seeing anything that is unlovely when you establish within your own mind's eye the fact that you are lovely. It is far better to know this than to know anything else in the world. It takes courage, boundless courage, because many this night, after having heard this truth, will still be inclined to blame others for their predicament. Man finds it so difficult to turn to himself, to his own consciousness as to the only reality. Listen to these words: "No man can come to me, except the Father, which hath sent me draw him." John 6:44. I and my Father are one. John 10:30. A man can receive nothing, except it be given him from heaven. John 3:27. Therefore doth my Father love me, because I lay down my life, that I might take it again. No man taketh it from me, but I lay it down of myself. John 10:17-18. You did not choose me. I have chosen you. My concept of myself molds a world in harmony with itself, and draws men to tell me constantly by their behavior who I am. The most important thing in this world to you is your concept of self. When you dislike your environment, the circumstances of life, and the behavior of men, ask yourself, who am I? It is your answer to this question that is the cause of your dislikes. If you do not condemn self, there will be no man in your world to condemn you. If you are living in the consciousness of your ideal, you will see nothing to condemn. To the pure, all things are pure. Now I would like to spend a little time making as clear as I can what I personally do when I pray, what I do when I want to bring about changes in my world. You will find it interesting, and you will find that it works. No one here can tell me they cannot do it. It is so very simple, all can do it. We are what we imagine we are. This technique is not difficult to follow, but you must want to do it. You cannot approach it with the attitude of mind, "Oh well, I'll try it." You must want to do it, because the mainspring of action is desire. Desire is the mainspring of all action. Now what do I want? I must define my objective. For example, suppose I wanted now to be elsewhere. This very moment I really desire to be elsewhere. I need not go through the door. I need not sit down. I need do nothing but stand just where I am, and with my eyes closed, assume that I am actually standing where I desire to be. Then I remain in this state until it has the feeling of reality. Were I now elsewhere, I could not see the world as I now see it from here. The world changes in its relationship to me as I change my position in space. So I stand right here, close my eyes, and imagine I am seeing what I would see were I there. I remain in it long enough to feel it to be real. I cannot touch the walls of this room from here. But when you close your eyes and become still, you can imagine and feel that you touch it. You can stand where you are and imagine you are putting your hand on that wall. To prove you really are, put it there and slide it up and feel the wood. You can imagine you are doing it without getting off your seat. You can do it and you will actually feel it if you become still enough and intense enough. I stand where I am and I allow the world that I want to see and to enter physically to come before me as though I were there now. In other words, I bring elsewhere here by assuming that I am there. Is that clear? I let it come up, I do not make it come up. I simply imagine I am there and then let it happen. If I want a physical presence, I imagine he is standing here, and I touch him. All through the Bible I find these suggestions. He placed his hands upon them. He touched them. If you want to comfort someone, what is the automatic feeling? To put your hand on them, you cannot resist it. You meet a friend and the hand goes out automatically. You either shake hands or put your hand on his shoulder. Suppose you were now to meet a friend that you have not seen for a year, and he is a friend of whom you are very fond. What would you do? You would embrace him, wouldn't you? Or you would put your hand upon him. In your imagination, bring him close enough to put your hand upon him and feel him to be solidly real. Restrict the action to just that. You will be amazed at what happens. From then on, things begin to move. Your dimensionally greater self will inspire, in all, the ideas and actions necessary to bring you into physical contact. It works that way. Every day I put myself into the drowsy state. It is a very easy thing to do. But habit is a strange thing in man's world. It is not law, but habit acts as though it were the most compelling law in the world. We are creatures of habit. If you create an interval every day into which you put yourself into the drowsy state, say at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, do you know at that moment every day you will feel drowsy? You try it for 1 week and see if I am not right. You sit down for the purpose of creating a state akin to sleep, as though you were sleepy, but do not push the drowsiness too far. Just far enough to relax and leave you in control of the direction of your thoughts. You try it for 1 week, and every day at that hour, no matter what you are doing, you will hardly be able to keep your eyes open. If you know the hour when you will be free, you can create it. I would not suggest that you do it lightly, because you will feel very, very sleepy, and you may not want to. I have another way of praying. In this case, I always sit down and I find the most comfortable armchair imaginable, or I lie flat on my back and relax completely. Make yourself comfortable. You must not be in any position where the body is distressed. Always put yourself into a position where you have the greatest ease. That is the first stage. To know what you want is the start of prayer. Secondly, you construct in your mind's eye one single little event which implies that you have realized your desire. I always let my mind roam on many things that could follow the answered prayer, and I single out one that is most likely to follow the fulfillment of my desire. One simple little thing like the shaking of a hand, embracing a person, the receiving of a letter, the writing of a check, or whatever would imply the fulfillment of your desire. After you have decided on the action which implies that your desire has been realized, then sit in your nice comfortable chair or lie flat on your back. Close your eyes for the simple reason it helps to induce this state that borders on sleep. The minute you feel this lovely drowsy state, or the feeling of gathered togetherness wherein you feel, I could move if I wanted to, but I do not want to. I could open my eyes if I wanted to, but I do not want to. When you get that feeling, you can be quite sure that you are in the perfect state to pray successfully. In this feeling, it is easy to touch anything in this world. You take the simple little restricted action which implies fulfillment of your prayer, and you feel it or you enact it. Whatever it is, you enter into the action as though you were an actor in the part. You do not sit back and visualize yourself doing it. You do it, with the body immobilized. You imagine that the greater you inside the physical body is coming out of it, and that you are actually performing the proposed action. If you are going to walk, you imagine that you are walking. Do not see yourself walk, feel that you are walking. If you are going to climb stairs, feel that you are climbing the stairs. Do not visualize yourself doing it, feel yourself doing it. If you are going to shake a man's hand, do not visualize yourself shaking his hand. Imagine your friend is standing before you and shake his hand. But leave your physical hands immobilized, and imagine that your greater hand, which is your imaginary hand, is actually shaking his hand. All you need do is to imagine that you are doing it. You are stretched out in time, and what you are doing, which seems to be a controlled daydream, is an actual act in the greater dimension of your being. You are actually encountering an event fourth dimensionally, before you encounter it here, in the 3 dimensions of space, and you do not have to raise a finger to bring that state to pass. My third way of praying is simply to feel thankful. If I want something either for myself or another, I immobilize the physical body, then I produce the state akin to sleep, and in that state just feel happy, feel thankful, which thankfulness implies realization of what I want. I assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and with my mind dominated by this single sensation I go to sleep. I need do nothing to make it so, because it is so. My feeling of the wish fulfilled implies it is done. All these techniques you can use and change them to fit your temperament. But I must emphasize the necessity of inducing the drowsy state, where you can become attentive without effort. A single sensation dominates the mind, if you pray successfully. What would I feel like now were I what I want to be? When I know what the feeling would be like, I then close my eyes and lose myself in that single sensation, and my dimensionally greater self then builds a bridge of incident to lead me from this present moment to the fulfillment of my mood. That is all you need do. But people have a habit of slighting the importance of simple things. We are creatures of habit, and we are slowly learning to relinquish our previous concepts, but the things we formerly lived by still in some way influence our behavior. Here is a story from the Bible that illustrates my point. It is recorded that Jesus told his disciples to go to the crossroads, and there they would find a colt, a young colt, not yet ridden by a man, to bring the colt to him, and if any man ask, "Why do you take this colt?" say, "The Lord has need of it." They went to the crossroads, and found the colt, and did exactly as they were told. They brought the unbridled ass to Jesus, and he rode it triumphantly into Jerusalem. The story has nothing to do with a man riding on a little colt. You are Jesus of the story. The colt is the mood you are going to assume. That is the living animal not yet ridden by you. What would the feeling be like were you to realize your desire? A new feeling, like a young colt, is a very difficult thing to ride unless you ride him with a disciplined mind. If I do not remain faithful to the mood, the young colt throws me off. Every time you become conscious that you are not faithful to this mood, you have been thrown from the colt. Discipline your mind, that you may remain faithful to a high mood, and ride it triumphantly into Jerusalem, which is fulfillment, or the city of peace. This story precedes the feast of the Passover. If we would pass from our present state into that of our ideal, we must assume that we are already that which we desire to be and remain faithful to our assumption, for we must keep a high mood if we would walk with the highest. A fixed attitude of mind, a feeling that it is done will make it so. If I walk as though it were, but every once in a while I look to see if it really is, then I fall off my mood or colt. If I would suspend judgment like Peter, I could walk on the water. Peter starts walking on the water, and then he begins to look unto his own understanding, and he begins to go down. The voice said, "Look up, Peter." Peter looks up, and he rises again and continues walking on the water. Instead of looking down to see if this thing is really going to harden into fact, you simply know that it is already so, sustain that mood, and you will ride the unbridled colt into the city of Jerusalem. All of us must learn to ride the animal straight into Jerusalem unassisted by a man. You do not need another to help you. The strange thing is that as we keep the high mood and do not fall, others cushion the blows. They spread the palm leaves before me to cushion my journey. I do not have to be concerned. The shocks will be softened as I move into the fulfillment of my desire. My high mood awakens in others the ideas and actions which tend towards the embodiment of my mood. If you walk faithful to a high mood, there will be no opposition and no competition. The test of a teacher, or a teaching, is to be found in the faithfulness of the taught. I am leaving here on Sunday night. Do remain faithful to this instruction. If you look for causes outside the consciousness of man, then I have not convinced you of the reality of consciousness. If you look for excuses for failure, you will always find them, for you find what you seek. If you seek an excuse for failure, you will find it in the stars, in the numbers, in the teacup, or most any place. The excuse will not be there, but you will find it to justify your failure. Successful business and professional men and women know that this law works. You will not find it in gossip groups, but you will find it in courageous hearts. Man's eternal journey is for one purpose, to reveal the Father. He comes to make visible his Father, and his Father is made visible in all the lovely things of this world. All the things that are lovely, that are of good report, ride these things and have no time for the unlovely in this world, regardless of what it is. Remain faithful to the knowledge that your consciousness, your I-amness, your awareness of being aware of the only reality, it is the rock on which all phenomena can be explained. There is no explanation outside of that. I know of no clear conception of the origin of phenomena, save that consciousness is all and all is consciousness. That which you seek is already housed within you. Were it not now within you, eternity could not evolve it. No time stretch would be long enough to evolve what is not potentially involved in you. You simply let it into being by assuming that it is already visible in your world and remaining faithful to your assumption. It will harden into fact. Your Father has unnumbered ways of revealing your assumption. Fix this in your mind and always remember, an assumption, though false, if sustained, will harden into fact. You and your Father are one, and your Father is everything that was, is and will be. Therefore that which you seek you already are. It can never be so far off as even to be near, for nearness implies separation. The great Pascal said, "You never would have sought me had you not already found me. What you now desire you already have, and you seek it only because you have already found it. You found it in the form of desire. It is just as real in the form of desire as it is going to be to your bodily organs. You are already that which you seek, and you have no one to change but self in order to express it."